Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. It is, no joke, election year, right? And we have some interesting things to talk about, like what has each of these presidents, current and former, done for veterans. There is an article actually on that on military.com. I wanted to read through it and see, I guess, what they're actually saying is done or has been done by each of these. So it's going to be kind of an important thing, I think, and I'm curious to see if military.com has any specific spin on it and if what they say is actually true or if they missed anything. And look, I'm kind of going off the top of my head with some of this stuff, so we'll see if there's anything that jars any of my memories and yours as well. So I'd love to see in the comments your thoughts as well. And I'm going to preface it with this. A lot of the things that are done by veterans that presidents take credit for were really congressional members putting together different acts or bills or what have you, and then getting it past their finish lines, and then it's signed off by the president. So there is that. It takes more than one, right, to actually tango, I guess. So in any case, let's jump into this. Hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I truly appreciate it. Again, I found this on military.com and just came out July 3rd and in the afternoon, and I wanted to share it with you here today. And let's jump into it. Hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all of that. It really does mean a lot. The two asks are really, look, let the video run and hit the thumbs up. And that is what pushes this into the hands of those that need it. All right, so here's what Biden and Trump actually did for veterans as president is the headline. And let's jump into it. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump have both sought to claim the mantle of veterans champion as each vies for a second term in office. And look, do good things for vets. It's a good thing to do. Let's move on. The campaign has often focused on the symbolic and intangible, such as Biden visiting a World War I cemetery during a recent trip to France that Trump opted against visiting during his tenure after reportedly derogatory remarks towards veterans in private. And again, that's reportedly or allegedly. Who really knows, right? Move on. Or Republicans hitting Biden for falsely claiming at last week's presidential debate that no U.S. troops have died on his watch. So, moving on, I don't know why. I don't know why they go down these roads. It's like, look, let's just talk about what each has done and move on. But we got a little bit of political play in any case. Moving on, but both also have legislative track records from their first terms in office, as well as well-documented accounts of how the Department of Veterans Affairs functioned under their administrations, and could point to how a second term would play out. Biden shepherded through the PACT Act, which has been described as the biggest expansion of veterans' benefits in generations. Trump's biggest veterans-related legislation was the Mission Act, which was also a fantastic act, which expanded veterans' ability to seek VA-funded care outside of the VA system. Someone who, here's a quotation, someone who may have benefited from the passage of the Mission Act, for that individual, it's the most important thing, said Patrick Murray, legislative director at the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Someone who may have a rare cancer that was benefited by the PACT Act, that's the most important thing to them. So different veterans who had different illnesses, injuries, disabilities, whatever, may have benefited from either of the bills. And to those veterans, that's the most important thing. Of course, I agree. Now, I don't know if this article is going to mention it because we haven't, this is as far as we've gone and I haven't read it prior to this. But there's also the Blue Water Navy Act, and that was huge, because it included into the Agent Orange presumptives all of the ships that were within 12 nautical miles of the Agent Orange presumptive areas during those time frames. And that was also huge. The Mission Act and the Blue Water Navy Act were two great implementations under Donald Trump. The PACT Act was great for all of the burn pit, all of the folks during the Gulf War are benefiting great from that. Vietnam era for the PACT Act, I mean, it added two presumptives. One really good one, by the way, which was the hypertension. So that's a great win for Vietnam folks, but it's not this huge thing for the Vietnam era folks. The PACT Act also did allow the VA to be able to really identify and function the whole passage of different things like additional presumptive conditions without this a lot of bureaucratic red tape. So it makes it much easier. So in any case, I agree that depending on the different veterans with their different needs, you're going to say one's better than the other because it affects you, obviously. So let's move on. Other veterans groups echoed the importance of both bills. And again, they haven't talked about the Blue Water, which is weird. So yes, Mission Act and then the Blue Water Navy Act as well. So we fought hard for the passage of the Mission and PACT Acts because veterans deserve the best possible care from VA. That's the American Legion's executive director for government affairs that they told military.com in an email. This means untangling the knots often associated with securing their earned health care benefits, expanding the rules to cover all those eligible, and lifting barriers to access, especially to those who live in rural areas. The PACT Act was the culmination of a years-long effort from veterans, family members, and other advocates to get better recognition and care for ailments believed to be caused by exposure to burn pits and other toxins during their military service. The legislation push got a significant boost when Biden, who has said he believes his son Beau fatal brain cancer was caused by burn pit exposure, endorsed it at the State of the Union address, giving it momentum needed to become law. Obviously, again, it all starts off in Congress, House, Senate, and if you know the president's going to sign off on it, you have a little more, I guess, vibrato as you're putting it all together. Moving forward, by the VA's own accounting, the law has resulted in more than 1 million new benefits claims approved and more than 300,000 new enrollments into the VA healthcare system. The implementation has not been without issue. Most significantly, senior VA executives were improperly paid almost $11 million in bonuses, which I covered on this channel, that were intended to retain employees with critical skills needed to handle the influx of work from the PACT Act. Veterans have also given one of the most high-profile elements of the PACT Act, toxic exposure screenings, lackluster reviews. But overall, veterans organizations have celebrated the PACT Act as a historic achievement, and rightly so. The fact that they've included so much for the burn pits and Gulf War era veterans, basically trying not to make the same mistakes that they did, the government, with Vietnam folks, right? You shouldn't have to wait 50 plus years to get recognized. So sadly, that situation occurred. So moving on, but overall, veterans organizations again have celebrated this the PACT Act as an historic achievement. Simply put, the bill represents the largest expansion of VA healthcare and benefits for those exposed to harmful substances during their military service in history. This is from the National Commander for the Disabled American Veterans, and they said that in the time of the passage of the 2022 bill. Now, I'm going to tell you, the service organizations, right, the DAV, the American Legion, the VFW, the Paralyzed American Veterans, the Purple Heart, Order of the Purple Heart, MOA, TREA, the Marine Corps League, the list goes on. These organizations act as lobbyists for bills, and when they get passed, they're going to sing the praises of all those involved with the passage of the bill. Why? Because we want more veterans bills to get passed, and you want to praise and say it loudly. So that's kind of how that works. Anyway, moving on. The Mission Act, meanwhile, was an effort to fix issues with the earlier Choice Act as a 2014 law that was born out of the VA wait time scandal. Trump often incorrectly refers to his achievement as choice, even though the earlier bill was the same name was signed by his predecessor. The Mission Act expanded the number of veterans eligible to receive private health care funded by the VA and consolidated several different programs for community care into one. Under the law, veterans can seek outside care if they face more than a 30-minute drive for a primary care or mental health service, or 60 minutes for specialty care, or a 20-day wait for primary care or mental health appointment, and more than 28-day for specialty care. This was huge because veterans were facing long wait times. And so this really opened the door for us to be able to go out and get care needed within specific time frames. And a lot of veterans really enjoyed that ability to be able to get out there into the community, into your backyard, and get seen in a timely fashion. Now, there's a whole host of issues with regard to the VA pulling back from community care, and that's a whole other story. So let's move on. Republicans have alleged that the VA under the Biden administration has undermined the mission. I agree. By limiting the number of referrals to community care, VA officials and Democrats, by contrast, have expressed concern about ballooning community care costs since the law's implementation. And here's my take on that. The problem is that if you're going to receive substandard care or extremely long wait times, or you have to drive forever, or you don't even have the ability to drive because of your age or your ailments, you don't have a car, whatever it is, to get to your appointment, what are you to do? Oh, well, sorry, your only choice is the VA? Come on. We deserve better than that. So moving on, another major element of the Mission Act is a commission that studied the VA's infrastructure needs fizzled out when it recommended closing 17 medical centers and dozens of aging or underused clinics. Lawmakers in both parties who had facilities on the chopping block refused to move forward. What was passed was not perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. The VFWs, Murray said, noting proposed updates to community care pending in Congress right now. Still, the Mission Act was a was unprecedented. And then, only a few years later, there was an even huger, more unprecedented bill that followed. He added the PACT Act. So both at the time were huge, were generational things. And then the next one just follows. So we will see what comes in 5 or 10 years, if it's another one that we'll be talking about. In other words, it's just happenstance, right? It's a snowball that keeps kind of going. And again, I'm surprised that there's no mention of the Blue Water Navy, which was gigantic. It opened up the door for a lot of folks to be able to be covered under the presumptives. Now, outside of the legislation, Trump and Biden have divergent records on VA staffing and leadership. Much like the rest of his administration, Trump's VA saw significant leadership turmoil. Trump's first VA secretary was David Shulkin, a VA undersecretary during the Obama administration, who was one of Trump's last picks for the cabinet secretaries ahead of his inauguration. Shulkin, I don't even know how to say it, was ousted by Trump a little more than a year into the job after an inspector general report found he took a trip to Europe that involved more sightseeing than official business, used taxpayer funding to have his wife accompany him on the trip, and improperly accepted tickets to a Wimbledon tennis match as a gift. Good. He should be fired. Thank you. That's what you need. To replace Shulkin, Trump first nominated current Representative Ronnie Jackson out of Texas, at the time a Navy doctor who served as the White House physician and won Trump's favor by showering him with praise. I don't know why they talk like this. Jackson, though, was forced to withdraw from that consideration after allegations that later were confirmed by the Inspector General that he drank on the job, overprescribed medications, and created a hostile work environment. Good. After Jackson's bid ended, Robert Wilkie, who had been working at the Pentagon, was nominated and confirmed as VA Secretary. He lasted through the end of the Trump administration. VA policy during the Trump administration was also directed by a trio of business executives with personal ties to Trump and memberships at his Mar-a-Lago club, according to a 2021 investigation by congressional Democrats that concluded that the arrangement violated the law and sought to exert improper influence over government officials to further their own personal interests. Biden's VA has had a comparatively steady leadership. Dennis McDonough, who was Obama's chief of staff and has served as VA secretary since the beginning of the Biden administration. There has been some turnover lower down on the organizational chart, including Donald Remy stepping down as deputy secretary last year. His replacement, Tanya Bradshaw, was the first woman to permanently be the VA number 2, had somewhat of a bumpy Senate confirmation over allegations that she did not adequately respond to concerns from whistleblowers and Republican lawmakers that an IT system was exposing veterans' personal information, which I believe I had also talked about on this channel. Now, there has been some calls from Republicans for officials involved in the PACT Act bonus scandal to resign, including at least one call for McDonough to step down, which I covered that as well. But the pressure has so far not reached a groundswell resulting in any resignations, with McDonough saying last month he continues to have faith in his leadership team. Overall, the highest trust scores of the VA under each administration were nearly tied, according to the Wisconsin Watch, a nonpartisan investigation news outlet. They were 80.2% in 2021 under Trump and 80.4% in 2024 under Biden. And that concludes it. Again, I'm surprised they didn't talk about the Blue Water Navy stuff that went into effect. And I'm also a little bit surprised that they didn't talk about the massive amounts of stumbling that the VA has gone through over the last about 3 years or so. Systems issues, PII issues, foreclosures happening on VA home loans because of some issues with the COVID forbearance issues with their mortgages, issues with pension recovery, overpayments to pension recipients, then wanting to rip the money back, issues with rolling out the PACT Act and allowing folks to put in that intent to file. System went down and they had to push the date to the right because of that. There has been literally calamity after calamity. Lastly, that 10 or $11 million in bonuses paid out to executives. There has been many issues within the VA, but yet leadership stays intact. So I'm a little concerned with that, but that's just me. So with that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on who did what for veterans, and I'm really agreeing with the service organizations there as far as what impacts you is going to be the most important to you. If you're a Blue Water vet and the Blue Water Navy stuff went through and all of a sudden you got a list of presumptives that you qualified for, that was huge, right? If you were a Gulf War vet and you have listed presumptives, the PACT Act is huge. So there's a lot of different things out there for folks, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.